Welcome to ProgPod, episode 5. This is the third episode of our countdown of our top 50 favorite songs of all time, where we're going to go through number 30 through 21, so halfway. Anything to say about that?
Yeah, it should be exciting. I'm looking forward to Eric's choices, and hopefully he's looking forward to mine too.
Yeah, I always enjoy, telling my choices, but I enjoy more is hearing your choices.
Yeah, same. Because I know mine, so it's not,
not
no
as exciting.
suspense with mine.
Okay, my pick, number 30, is one that I think will be surprising for you. Another one that's surprising for you in that you have never heard anything by this band. Except for one time. You've heard one song one time, but it takes more than one listen. It wasn't in the best environment anyways. But the song is called Rubicon Wall. And the band is Giant Squid, and the album is The Ichthyologist. This is this song, Rubicon Wall, is the conclusion to the album. And it's a concept album that is a really neat concept that me explaining it doesn't really do it justice, because it kind of sounds like a little bit maybe silly when you just say it. But it's basically about a guy who gets stranded at sea for a really long time, and he gradually starts turning into just a creature of the sea, basically. And in this last song on the album, Rubicon Wall, he's basically resigned himself to the fact that he's never getting back. He's maybe I think he dies too. But anyways, he basically is just gone for good. So it's a song of just despair and kind of hopelessness. The musical style is very progressive. I'd say progressive metal. It's basically just uses lots of lush instrumentation, lots of clean guitars with some cellos, with a few heavy sections, a few chuggy heavy sections. The thing that I like the most about the song that separates it from their other songs, or separates from other songs and puts it on this list, is the crazy vocals that are actually really divisive. I can see a lot of people not liking the vocals. They're really just they're almost like Mastodon's vocals, where it's but I think really better even, but not necessarily for everyone. There's one vocal passage in this where it's one of the final vocal passages. That actually, it's one of my favorite vocal passages of all time, and it's just these absolutely unhinged, crazy, insane vocals, and that because there's a male vocalist and a female vocalist, and the male vocalist does this section, and it's just really crazy, and it's kind of signifying the end of the story, which is really upsetting. Anyways, so it's a really good song. It's on this list. I love it. So it's number 30. Number 29 is one that I think isn't going to be that surprising. Well, it might be surprising because I think I had another song from this album, and I think you said that something about that being my favorite song on the album, but it actually wasn't. And the song is There Anybody There? By Deer Hunter from Act 4, Rebirth and Reprise. So this is another Deer Hunter song that, actually this is my top Deer Hunter song on the list, which is kind of sad because they're in my top 3 favorite bands ever. But like we say, they're definitely the main example of an album's band. But anyways, this song is another song that's very melancholy and sad. It's just a great song overall. It has beautiful choruses and just some really really crushing lyrics. When you know the story, that are really, it's really poignant, kind of moment story. And it has an amazing guitar solo, which is really kind of almost out of place in their discography. It's really emotional. I would say it's a very emotional guitar solo, but also really technical too, which is not something you expect at all from the Deer Hunter, because the music isn't really flashy generally. And Casey has gone on record saying that he's I don't do that many guitar solos because I already do enough things to draw attention to myself on stage. He said that before, but he maybe should do more because. The song is a really good one.
He's actually a really, really good guitarist.
Yeah.
And he can shred too.
Oh yeah,
and I feel a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that when I first was listening.
There's that live album they have, and there's this song, "But Those Wolves" from the Color Spectrum.
Yeah.
And there's a guitar solo on that song on the album, but there's an extended guitar solo.
Yeah, in the live version.
When they perform it live, and he just absolutely goes insane for 2 minutes. And
yeah,
it's really interesting.
And you wouldn't expect that because it's not his style. He doesn't seem like the person who'd even care about that, but but it's a really good song. And it has probably one of my favorite like choruses ever. And it's beautifully sung. I don't have that much to say about the song other than all that. Just I'd say it's like a beautiful, melancholy, sad song that is really good. So, yeah, that's my 29.
All right, my number 30 is the only song by this band on this list, and it's my favorite song by this band. And that song is "Close to the Edge" by Yes. Yes is a band that took me a little while to get into, which is kind of weird. Almost, I mean, they're really, really progressive, but they do have a lot of happy melodies and stuff. So I feel like a lot of people can get into Yes easily if they're already into some progressive bands. But that wasn't the case for me for whatever reason. I couldn't get into them easily. But once they started clicking with me, especially the classic albums, I really, really fell in love with them. And "Close to the Edge" is a song. It's the first song off the album "Close to the Edge." And it's this 18-minute song that's really, really good. It opens with this really frenetic, just everyone in the band just going absolutely nuts, kind of. There's this really frenetic guitar noodly stuff going on, and the Chris Squire is going insane on the bass, and Rick Wakeman's doing some really fast-paced keys or whatever, and it does that for 3 minutes, and every once in a while there's this break in the action where Anderson just gives an ah or whatever, and everyone just stops when he does that, and it goes back to that frenetic action before coming into this really beautiful guitar solo that has this it's really melodic, and the whole verse chorus structure they do in the first part of that song is really catchy, I think. There's a bunch of cool stuff going on instrumentally, especially with the keys and the bass, and the song develops into this really atmospheric, really slow piece in the middle that has some really cool layered vocals from Anderson and Steve Howe, the guitarist, before building up to this really emotional part, the "I get up, I get down" part or whatever, and then it goes into this Rick Wakeman plays this really, really cool, really, it's always very emotional for me, this really cool organ type thing or whatever, and it repeats that twice before coming back into it reprises the main chorus at the end, and before that main chorus this is a really, really super shreddy technical keyboard solo that's really, really awesome, and the song is just it means a lot to me, and over the years I've just grown to love it so much, and it's probably my favorite song of the big 6 prog bands out of all of them, all of their discography is probably my favorite song of those 6. So that's my number 30. And my number 29 is another band that's only featured once on this list, and the band is Vektor, and the song is "Recharging the Void." It's the closing track on Terminal Redux, which is a concept album. And Vektor's a progressive thrash metal band, and they do a lot of really cool stuff. They're one of the most technical bands I listen to, I would say. They're just all really, really skilled with their instruments, and I don't know, the song opens with this really, really badass riff. I feel it's just so cool. It's dun 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 dun. Yeah. And it just explodes into mayhem pretty much. There's just a bunch of really cool shreddy guitar stuff that all is really in place. The drumming is insane. The vocalist is like really divisive, I would say. I absolutely love the vocalist. He does like these like blackened like shrieks, which is not like super typical of progressive thrash metal, but they really fit well. And lyrically, it's like amazing. The whole album lyrically is phenomenal. I recommend like sitting down with it and listening to it with the lyrics in front of you. But like one of my favorite things about the song is like there's this part in the middle that like goes into like this weird. They bring in like basically like a, I don't know, it's almost like a gospel singer.
Like choir.
A choir type thing, and she's got these like beautiful vocals like in the back, pushed to the back just a little bit. They're really good, and there's this really like mellow, like clean vocal section before it comes back into this like cool little guitar melody, and then there's like some cool like piano stuff behind all that stuff as well, which is really interesting. And the whole like final 3 minutes is just like kind of nuts, and it's just like an emotional like roller coaster if you like know what's going on like in the story. And the lyrics are really, really good in that section, and there's some really, really good riffs in those final 3 minutes that are all just amazing. And that song ends in just like one final like shriek, basically. I just love it every time. So that's my 29.
All right, my song number 28 is a song that is a relatively recent addition, and the song is "The Crossroads" by Southern Empire. So Southern Empire is a band that is from Australia, and they're part of sort of like a new wave of like really good progressive rock and or metal bands from Australia. So this is a song that on my first listen I was like not really so sure about. It's a lot to take in. It's a 29-minute epic. And it's kind of like it evolves and progresses sort of in steps. So it's really difficult, like the first time you listen to it, like it's hard to like wrap your head around like any of it really, much less like the whole thing. The style of the band, I'd say it's sort of like it's like progressive. It's eclectic progressive rock masquerading as progressive metal. It has. I say that because like it's got a lot of shreddy guitar solos and like soaring vocals, like a lot of sort of the more clean style of prog metal does, and it's got like this sort of like anthemic choruses that prog metal does, and like sort of sometimes somewhat technical drumming, and they occasionally throw in a heavy riff, but the heavy riffs are like few and far between. And overall, I would definitely say they're like not a metal band. Like I wouldn't put them on the metal archives or anything. But they're and also like eclectic prog, they throw in like they have the everything, including the kitchen sink approach. They have all sorts of weird instruments on this that they play. They have like some flutes, they have some mandolin, there's a flugelhorn, they have saxophones, they have different types of saxophones. Like a tenor sax, and they have like bongo drums make quite an appearance. They also have some like a bunch of different styles. Like they have some like really like old type passages and like samples and things, which is really really cool. So those kind of things like appear throughout the song. Anyways, listening to the whole thing, it's sort of like eating like a whole triple layer cake. It's just like it's like quite an experience. It's very like the song is very excessive, right? And like that could be seen as like a bad thing, but for me it's like not at all. But I could see a lot of people being like, oh, this is like a really there's no restraint really at all. There's like crazy guitar solos and like again the vocals are just crazy. Like they're not afraid to like kind of like show off how talented they are. But the song like holds my attention for the entire length and for the whole 29 minutes. And I think that's like for a few reasons. For one, like it never really lingers on any like one part for that long. Like if you broke every part down and made it into like each its own individual song, it would probably be like 60 songs or something because it's like it evolves quite rapidly, and it rarely revisits like old parts. Like it basically just like there's like it changes to like something completely different like all the time and progresses in a way that is really satisfying. It's incredibly satisfying. The next one is so this is like a relatively new edition. The next one is a relatively old edition. Probably I think it was on like one of the first times we did this. And that song is "Serenity Painted Death" by the band Opeth. This song is kind of like an Opeth sandwich. It's like a several stacks of Opeth sandwich because it starts like Opeth. Like I've said before, they're my favorite band probably. They're also like a band really like known for their like incredibly harsh moments and like incredibly not harsh moments. And this is kind of like a song like some of their other ones like Bleak, where they start off with like a really harsh part with like a really crazy dissonant riff that like sticks, even though it's like super dissonant of a riff, it's like really catchy at the same time. And then like sort of like and they do that for like 4 minutes or so, and then there's like a couple minutes where it's like more mellow, and there's like this really weird it almost sounds like a level of Sonic, like the underwater level of Sonic, like guitar riff that comes in. And I was really like kind of it was kind of jarring the first time I heard it, but I grew to love that. And they also have this part, which is a thing that Opeth does quite commonly that I wish more bands did, where it's like acoustic guitar picking, like over like a really strong prominent bass line. And that part is probably my highlight of the song actually. Mendez, who is their bassist, is really good on this. Is very good on this song, and plays it amazingly. And then like the harsh vocals come back in, and one of Michael Ockerfeld's best early performances. I think he like in his first couple albums his harsh vocals were good, but this is the first time they were like for me like a whole nother level of like good in this album. And this particular song showcases his like huge range. Like he has like really beautiful clean vocals in the song during that middle section, and then like towards the end section he has some really like brutal vocals, some of his most brutal vocals.
Okay. Yeah, so my 28 and 27 are gonna follow a very similar, like, way that yours just did. 28 is might be the most recent one. It's either the most recent one or the second most recent one, and then 27 is an old like classic,
Classic one.
So 28 is by an artist called Phideaux.
Oh, nice.
And the song is from Hydrogen with Love. And it's a very good Two
From
Love.
Hydrogen to
from
Love.
Hydrogen,
Yeah, yeah.
From Hydrogen
Sorry,
to Love.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's the 14-minute track on his latest album, Infernal. Which, if you haven't heard Infernal, you should just stop listening to this podcast and just go do that
I
instead.
can confirm it's lit.
Yeah. But it's just this like really big, grandiose track, and it's really hard to pick a single track from this album. And this is probably definitely my favorite from this album. But this album just flows so well. It's 90 minutes long, and it just flows so perfectly. Everything just like every song flows like really well into each other. But this song is really, really cool for like a lot of reasons. It's like, for me, it's like it's like the like climax of the like entire story.
Yeah,
almost.
I'd say so.
And I'd say like the other two songs are more like come down songs almost. And it has the really cool part. This really cool like drum pattern like opens the song, and there's like her name is Valerie Gracious, I think is how you pronounce her name, is the female vocalist who's the lead vocalist as with Phideaux. And she brings in like some beautiful like vocals that are reprising like one of my other favorite songs from the band. And then Phideaux comes in, and there's this really cool like piano melody that is playing behind him. Just everything about the song is like really perfect, and it really progresses in like a really cool way. There's a bunch of different like moving parts as well. There's a bunch of cool keyboard and piano stuff. Tons of cool guitar stuff as always. There's a really cool almost a really shreddy guitar solo in the middle. That's pretty short. It doesn't like overstay its welcome, but it's really, really good. And the song kind of like slows down in the middle and is like instrumentally reprising a bunch of stuff, actually, like multiple songs from the album before, which is really cool. And then there's like something like really out of character like happens around this part. There's like some harsh vocals, which are kind of weird, and I don't know
Pretty much the only harsh vocals.
I don't know if he does that. It doesn't credit anyone else, so I assume Phideaux's doing it, but it's really interesting, and it really fits well, actually. And then there's the two of them like are singing together this really cool like kind of like second like chorus or whatever, referencing the song title. Before it's like just like Phideaux, and he's like again reprising a song from Doomsday Afternoon, lyrically and melodically, and it just really works well. If you know anything about the story, it's kind of like a apocalyptic like. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like Big Brother type.
Yeah,
stuff
it's
too,
like Big Brother government, and like I don't know, the environment's like going to hell, and like I don't know, there's just it's like a tyrannical government essentially, like controlling people, and it's just like this like I don't know, it's very sad. The final like 2 minutes of the song, it's almost like the character in the story is just like pleading like for like it to all be over, or whatever, and he's just like talking about dreaming that the wars and the famine will like end or whatever, and it's a really good song, and it's like just one of my favorite songs ever, obviously, if it's on this list. And the next song, 27, is an old classic, and it's by the band Haken.
Nice.
And I think this is the first entry on the list for Haken. It is. And it's from the album Aquarius, which is their first album. And the song is Celestial Elixir, which is my favorite song off of Aquarius and one of my favorite Haken songs. And it is a really interesting song musically. It opens with like this really it always like seems very dark to me, the piano and keyboard thing they open with, and it's interesting because like it's reprising the first song actually a little bit, the point of no return on the album, which is like almost more of that piano opening is much more like happy to me, and this one seems like much more darker and sinister, which I always thought was a cool thing that like the two songs did, and I think it's cool how like one opens it and one like closes it. And it comes in with these soaring like synthesizers and really cool guitar riffs before like a minute into the song breaking down into this like really funky like circus jam with the keyboards and guitars, and it's really fun and goofy. It's very Haken. Before like there's like the next like 6 or 7 minutes of this really atmospheric like verse chorus structure, which is really interesting. Before like again going into like another like circusy type jam that's like much more like technical and heavier this time, which is really interesting. before coming back to this really, really cool melody that I've always loved with that Diego plays on the keyboards or whatever, where it's like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know.
That part, before Ross like comes back in vocally. And the end of the song is really awesome as well. Like reprises the song Streams lyrically before like outroing with like a really, really cool guitar solo. It's like one of it's one of their big epics, and Haken epics are always like just like so good to me, and it's like perfectly executed, and it ends the album, like the concept album, perfectly, and that's why it's on this list.
Nice. All right, so my next one is going to be a little shorter than the last one. The last two were very long, but this next one has already been featured once on this playlist, or on this list by Brandon, and the song is called Mauer Bauer Traurig Kite by the band Closure in Moscow.
That was really good pronunciation.
Thank you. Yeah, and I learned the meaning. So apparently, it means like that thing where you like push people away like once they get too close, which makes a lot of sense like in the story or whatever. Anyways, I don't know what Brandon really put it well when he talked about this one. It's basically a song that starts off with like some really, really kind of like melancholy stuff. And it's kind of like standard like Closure in Moscow stuff, but then like halfway through it kind of does this like one of the most emotional like kind of builds ever. Yeah, and it's just so cool, and with amazing lyrics. I don't know, it's just like pure poetry. The lyrics that Christopher Desinque, if he wrote the lyrics, which I think he does, came up with. Like once that build happens, it's just so good. My favorite listen of this song is a weird one. Is one time me and you were on a drive around, and this was like shortly after I think I'd given it to you for Album of the Week in like 2017. And we were driving home from James Island, and like it came on, and for some reason I felt like it was like clicking with you for some reason, and like the fact that it was like clicking with you made it like seem better to me.
I know like literally exactly what moment you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's weird because you know what? Like 2 days ago we were driving home from James Island.
We listened to that.
Yeah, it was the same exact
and
bridge.
We were both, like super into it.
Yeah, it was. But it was weird because I don't know. I never said anything, but for some reason in my head I was like, oh, I think like Brennan really likes this right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. Anyways. Good stuff, really good song. The next one is another one that has been featured, so again, shorter one a little bit. And that is Raider 2 by Steven Wilson. Anyways, so this song, Brandon talked about, it's about serial killers, like all Steven Wilson songs are. Every single one is about serial killers. Not really, but this one is about serial killers. And the whole song does a really good job at being about serial killers. Like it's just like really, it like builds almost the whole way, like almost for the entire runtime. It's just like building like gradually with like some setbacks or whatever, and some like that cool guitar solo section. And I think around like 9 minutes or so, that like crazy bit. That's awesome. It's really jazzy. It's really slow and quiet at a lot of parts. Which just gradually all that stuff in the beginning for the first like literally like 15 minutes serves to like just kind of like build this like tension, and then like at the end, in the last 5 minutes, there's that like really, there's that huge build where like all the instruments are like doing it like slowly like marching up, and then like releasing with this like fiery guitar solo. It just sounds like so evil. I really think that's like, because I think the story is like, okay, like the serial killer like comes in, like breaks into these people's houses, which is I think what the BTK killer guy did in real life, and like he breaks into their houses, and then like he's like talking to them and like going through his whole thing, and he's like telling them like what he's gonna do basically. He's like, every story has to have an ending, like implying like you guys are gonna like have an ending, and like cutting the phone and stuff. Actually, when I first listened to it, I didn't know what the story was, so I was like, why is he talking about phones? Anyways, so that makes a lot of sense though. And then I personally think that slow march up and then gradual like and then like release into that, because it was him literally like murdering them, is I think. Anyways, so really good song. Obviously, it's on this list at number 25.
All right, my number 26 is by a band that has been pretty heavily featured on this list so far, and that band is again Between the Buried and Me.
Nice.
And this is a hard one to place on this list. I didn't know where to place it, but it ended up here. And the reason it's so hard is because the song is from my favorite album of all time, which is Coma Ecliptic, and it's actually the only song from the album that's on here because that album is such an album,
Yeah,
and it's really difficult to pick songs. But this song I picked is Memory Palace, which is the longest track on the album. It's my favorite on the album. But it's really good song. Both in the story, it's this really like. I don't know, it's the first part of this really big climax that happens from Memory Palace to the song Option Oblivion to Life in Velvet, which to me always just seemed like one big song, even though they're not. I always like place them as one big song, and it opens with this like really cool like. And really, I don't know, this cool guitar riff that's kind of like noodly as well. That's just really awesome. With Tommy coming in with some clean vocals that are awesome. There's some really awesome guitar work and there's some cool keyboard work going on in the background as well. And the way the song like progresses is like super satisfying to me. The first part has like these really cool like vocal harmonies that are going on, really good lyrics I think, and like Tommy keeps switching back between the cleans and the harshes like very rapidly I feel like in that first part, before like coming into this like really melodic like section of the song, and I just said really like 8 times to emphasize how melodic it is, because the first part of the song hasn't been super melodic, and it's just it's a really melodic part, and it's really beautiful too. It's really like lush instrumentation, and it's like just really mellow, and it's really like dreamy and like atmospheric, like. There's this really like cool, lyrics to like, because I think it like fits really well where Tommy goes, focus on melody, the sounds under my eyes. I think that like fits really well lyrically with like what's going on musically, and it then like devolves back into like multiple sections that keep building on top of each other in terms of like craziness. There's like the part where it's like I do not want to go back or whatever, that keeps like building into like this like crazy frenetic like vocal thing. Before going into like multiple other sections that have a lot of cool like drum work and stuff and guitar work, and then it goes into this like another really melodic guitar solo, like by Between the Buried Me standards, I would say it's a slow guitar solo, and it again like goes back to that like really melodic section that I was talking about before, which is always just like I love when it comes back to that, before outroing with like the riff that like opened it. So it's just like it's like my favorite song on the album, and I love it a lot. My number 25 is also a band that has featured a lot on this list so far, and that is it's another Beardfish song, and it's the sequel to a song that I've already talked about. And the song I've already talked about was A Love Story, which was number 39. This is 25, and it's If We Must Be Apart, A Love Story Continued, off their album Comfort Zone, whatever it is. So
Comfort Zone area code. It's his area code, yeah. With some numbers before. I think it's 4926. I could be wrong, though. And this is a 15-minute song, and again, Beardfish and 15-minute songs go together like no other thing. Like, it's like perfect together. It's like a layer.
And like the first time I listened to the song, I didn't know it was like a sequel. I was like always curious like why it like had that annotation like A Love Story Continued, and I didn't know I don't know why I didn't know for a while that it was like a continuation of like the story. But the song like has really cool like lyrical content. It's basically telling the story from like both of the people's perspectives in the first story, like the girl who left the guy and he was like heartbroken over it, and we start off with like the girl's perspective, and she's like married now and like is pregnant. I believe she's pregnant at the time.
Yeah, she's pregnant.
And she's like just moved on with her life, but she like still like thinks about him like somewhat often, I guess is what the story's trying to convey, that she still thinks about him from time to time.
Now and then,
and it's just like kind of like going through like her like headspace of how she what her like memory like of this person is like, and we get to see him, and he's kind of just like completely devolved, and like this is like that like breakup like completely broke him as a human, pretty much is what we're seeing. And it's really cool lyrically, and it's also really good musically as well. There's some really cool keyboard stuff in the song that I love, and Ricard Soldierman is probably my favorite keyboardist of all time. He's just like so unique with like his tones he uses, and he's just really creative.
Really picks some cool tones.
He picks some amazing tones. But the whole song, like again, it has this really cool like build to this really sad like moment where like she like walks, she like goes to see him or whatever and walks in, and he's like committed suicide by like overdosing on pills, I believe. I think is what happens.
Yeah.
And she's just like heartbroken or whatever. And it's just this really, really sad song. Like the other one is also sad too. This one's like even sadder somehow. Just like seeing how like it has ended for this like person and this other person who like still like obviously cares about him like deeply, even though she's like involved with like someone like she cares about more and like vibes with more. But it's an amazing song. It's my favorite song on that album. Yeah, that's my 25.
Dope. All right. My song number 24 is by a band that's been featured on this once before by me, and the band is Gazpacho. Again, band named after tomato soup. Kind of interesting. The only band I know of that's named after a bowl of tomato soup. Anyways, this song is called Dream of Stone, and it's from their album Night, which for me is their best album. Now this song in particular, it's kind of interesting because the album has 5 songs on it, and the band has said that it's all like one continuous piece of music. When you listen to the album as a whole, it really does sound like that. The songs flow into each other really well, but it does have 5 like separate tracks that are listed pretty much anywhere that you would look up information about the album, and on Spotify and other places like that. So I am, for the purposes of this list, I'm saying Dream of Stone is a separate song from the other songs in the album. Anyways, it doesn't really matter because Dream of Stone is the only song to feature on this list. Although if I were to take into account all 5 of the songs, it would probably be higher up. So this song, so Gazpacho is a band that I have said in the past when we were talking about Death Room from their album Demon, that they're just a band that they just are masters of building atmosphere and creating these like soundscapes that really put you into a specific mood or a specific vibe. And for me, for this album, the album is called Night, and the sort of soundscape it builds is one of night. It's such a great album to listen to, like say on like a drive at nighttime, or walking around at night. It just oozes that whole like nighttime atmosphere. It sort of reminds me of being in like some like cold, like sort of cyberpunk city in the future, or like steampunk city in the future, and like walking around on like grimy streets, and like there are neon signs everywhere, like advertising, or whatever. So it's kind of one of the weird things it reminds me of. That's kind of the weird thing it makes me think of. Anyways. So the song itself is a 17-minute long epic, and it sort of starts off with slowly with some kind of like chugging before going into this really long sort of like instrumental sort of jam thing, this sort of groovy instrumental passage that is really, it's like has some subtle guitar work, some subtle electronic stuff going on in the background. That's really interesting. It took me a while of listening to it before I even really like noticed what was going on in the background with all the cool electronic like keyboard stuff, and that's pretty neat. And there's this really groovy like fat, like PHAT fat bass line that plays in the background. Just plays this really groovy riff. It kind of changes throughout the first like part, this first segment of the song. That's like the longest, sort of the meat of the song. And over top of this, the vocalist, who I think is like the highlight of the band, and the highlight of the song, he's just like going nuts over it with these like really haunting vocals that kind of really again help build the atmosphere and put you in that like nighttime atmosphere. And again, like I said, for me, he's the highlight. And after a while, it kind of fades out into like sort of a more atmospheric section that's like even quieter and sort of subdued. And there's a short violin like interlude going on. They have a really good violinist. Whoever plays the violin in the band is awesome. And then it kind of comes, the sort of main groove from before, it kind of comes back in, and this time over top of it there's like a screeching sort of guitar solo that is just really that's really powerful. And there's some really powerful kind of like chugs going on too, that really just like on their own would be pretty cool, but in the context of that, the whole song up to that point where it's just like this long groovy thing, and all of a sudden there's this like shrieky, powerful guitar solo. It's just awesome, and it's just a great song overall. Huge fan of it. I have to say, I think that Gazpacho, they're sort of a band, and this is a song and album to show people who have a certain preconception or maybe misconception of what prog is, because prog sort of has tropes, and it's kind of stereotyped by a lot of people outside of the genre as a genre with like bad vocalists and like weird, like cheesy concepts, and like just too showy, so technical and showy and all that stuff, and people just noodling away on their instruments, just making everyone else feel bad or whatever. But this is a song that has none of that. It's just all atmosphere, all songwriting. It's so good. There's no showing off their instruments. It's pretty slow paced. But yeah, just a great song all around. And that's my number 24. All right, and number 23 is an older song. Number 24 was actually a song that I'd only heard for the first time at the beginning of last year. So relatively new, but this one is one that would have been on this list for a long time, and it's a song that was kind of from my early days of getting into progressive music, and it's kind of lingered around towards the top of this list for a long time, and that song is Face of Melinda by my favorite band, or probably my favorite band, Opeth, from their album Still Life. Still Life is an album that has been featured on this today already, actually, with Serenity Painted Death. But this is a song that is pretty different from that song, despite being on the same album. And again, like I said before, I think Still Life was a very unique album, with few other albums that, or if any, that sound exactly like that and give off that like evil, sort of medieval vibe. But anyways, this song is one that really does that. It's a song that's very clean and very ballady, and it starts off with just some really cool sort of like medieval sounding. I've said that a lot of times, but it's very medieval sounding finger picking with Michael Ockerfeld's sort of really soothing, spooky, clean vocals that are very powerful and always just sort of resonated with me a lot. I really just love Mike Ockerfeld's voice that he uses on this, well, in general, and that he uses on this song. And just about halfway through, after a long time of sort of this clean finger picking stuff and strumming and all that, there's like this really powerful sort of riff that comes in, sort of really heavy metal riff that comes in over top of soaring, like, clean vocals still. And this song actually doesn't have any harsh vocals at all. And it's just really, and the riff that comes in is awesome, and it's very catchy, and it's very emotional. It's like one of the most emotional songs for me, especially knowing where it is in the story. So really good song overall. Obviously, it's at number 23 in this list. Definitely, like, maybe in a lot of ways one of the more straightforward, like, Opeth songs. But it's just so, it hits me emotionally every single time.
All right, my number 24 is the only song by this band on this list. It made it pretty high. This song is very good in my opinion.
Half.
Yeah, top half. And the band is The Ocean, and the song is The Quiet Observer.
Nice.
And this is a song that, like, I was, like, weirdly, like, reluctant to listen to for a while.
You did. I was almost going to give it to you just for that one song. It was like
I have this weird thing where I'm really good at listening to the band's, like, full discographies, like, all their studio albums, all their full-length albums. But if bands have, like, EPs, I, like, put them on the shelf for a while, even if people tell me, especially when I say people, I mean Eric, tells me, hey, this EP's really good, check it out. I just, like, am, like, afraid of it for some reason. I'm like, it's not a full album, I can't
what
do
did
it.
EPs do to you?
Yeah. But yeah, this is just like one song off of a split EP they did with the band Mono. The EP was called Transcendental, I think. Yeah. And first off, the album art for that EP is like
really
some of my favorite album art of like all time. But this is like the best Ocean song in my opinion. It's just under 13 minutes. It just like showcases everything the band does like really, really well, I think. it opens with this like it has this like really long build that is really just I love how it builds. The cello is just like so good in that opening moment. It's got some really cool like drum patterns. I love how like the song opens with that little like it's almost like a drop like drum beat like that happens. It's really cool. It like drops into like the cello and the piano. Like, it's really interesting. And then like there's like some like push back like kind of like harsh vocals like push back in the mix that are saying like rise fall or is it fall or is it float? It's float. Rise float or whatever. And then like the full band comes in. This is really cool like metal riff that comes in. That's really awesome. And then like Loic Rossetti, who's one of my favorite vocalists ever. He just has like really good range. He's like one of my favorite clean vocalists ever. He's also one of my favorite harsh vocalists ever. Which like I feel like when a guy can do both like that well for me, it's just like he's always just like one of my favorites. There's just some really, really good like clean vocals that come in. One of the things I love the most about the song is the lyrical content. I think the lyrics are really, really good. It comes back to like that rise, like float thing, but this time it's like very much forward in the mix. And there's this the chorus is really cool. It's really like, I don't know, it's my favorite chorus I think they've ever written. It's almost like anthemic for them, which is like not really like their thing really.
Not at all.
But, like, I don't know, I just really love it, and it like does like this thing where it like will sing like one line and like clean vocals and like switch to like the second half and harsh, which is a thing they do often, but this song just like is executed like perfectly. And there's this really cool like guitar solo that happens like in like around the 7 or 8 minute mark.
Yeah.
Which I also think is kind of weird for them. They don't use...
Oh, yeah. So interesting fact. So like later on in their career, they've been like getting more and more away from the collective thing, and like they've been trying to have more permanent members. And they got this guitarist who stuck around for part of the Pelagial tour, because like one of the guitarists quit after Pelagial came out, and he was on the tour for Pelagial, and then he was part of that album, and that guy was like Shred-tastic guy. So that's like he's on that one song by them.
So that makes sense why that.
Yeah.
But it's like perfectly placed. I think it like works really well within the song, and it's like really shreddy for them, for the band. And that makes sense now.
Yeah.
After that solo, it kind of goes back into like the cello, this really cool cello thing, like this kind of eerie sounding cello melody they're playing. Before there's this really cool like the doused in greens and blues and that whole part is really cool vocally, really cool vocal harmonies going on. And the song is just really great, and like eventually comes back to like the main chorus one more time. It's just really, really good overall. And it's my favorite song by them. My number 23 is the first time this band has been featured. They used to be my favorite band of all time, and the band is Rush. The first time they're being featured on this list, and the song here is off their album Hemispheres, which used to be my favorite album of all time. Nice. And the song that is being picked here is Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres, which is the first song on that album. And it's a 17-minute song. I think it might be 18 actually, just over 18. And it like is a Rush song that like it's my favorite like Rush like epic, I would say. And that like didn't used to always be the case. I used to think 2112 and The Fountain of Lemneth were better. But like over time, like this song really, really grew on me, and I think it's definitely their best like long form song they ever wrote. It's really cool because like this song like is the second part of a song that was on the album before this, Farewell to Kings, has the first part of the song, and then the second part of the song just like opens this album, and it really opens like really like kind of in your face and like kind of abruptly, and it makes sense if you like play them together, but if you like weren't doing that, it would seem like abrupt. And this the mix is phenomenal. Rush like mixes their albums very, very well, especially the bass is mixed just like always like perfectly, which is one of my like favorite things about them, besides the fact that like everything else they do is amazing too. But there's like this really cool like guitar like melody that keep coming back to you throughout the song, and the song is about like the first part of the song is about like this like ship going through like a black hole or whatever, and then like exiting into like this new society, and then like they're on this like new planet or whatever, I guess, and they have to like rebuild society. Really weird thing, really weird like story going on, but it all like works really well. Like lyrically, and this song describes like building this new society and this new civilization.
Okay, so my last two for this episode, number 22. These two are actually going to go by really fast for two completely different reasons, but anyways, I've had a couple really long ones, so it makes sense. Anyways, so number 22 is one that's going to go by a little bit fast because I know for a fact that it's going to be much higher up than this on Brandon's list, and I want to give him a chance to talk about it in more detail. I'm going to talk about it a little bit. You might be able to guess what it is from that. But the song, and you might be surprised it's this low, but it's still like in the top. It's in 22. But the song is Silent Flight Parliament by the band Between the Buried and Me, better known as Between the Bam and Me, or Between the Bam and I. So anyway, I love the song a lot. It's just really good. It's my favorite Between the Buried and Me song. So this is like as high as they get or whatever. But yeah, it is disrespectful. But anyways, yeah, you're disrespectful, man. But anyways, so yes, this song. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I love it a lot. Like it's just a 15-minute song with lots of like variation, lots of clean vocals, really really good. Lots of harsh vocals, lots of shreddy, noodly guitar stuff that they do a lot. That's really good. And I think like Brandon said before, like from the 8-minute mark on, it's like a 15-minute song. Like from the 8-minute mark on, it's just like so good. Even the whole thing is really good, and like the last 3 minutes or so, I just always just like sing along. I can't help it. I just always like kind of belt along when he's like jet propulsion disengage. Yeah. So I love this song a lot. It has room to grow a little bit because, I have listened to this album a lot, but always there's a little bit of room to grow. Still like a relatively newer addition to this for me compared to other ones. But anyways, and my next one I'm going to talk about. Actually, don't know how long I'm going to talk about this one, but it's one I've already talked about on this podcast, and that is Crimson by Edge of Sanity, which is a 40-minute long song that is really good. I've talked about it before in this podcast, and I actually had it as one of the song recs, but it was released in I think 1996 or something, so pretty old. One of the first I think super mega long prog metal epics released, that was definitely metal and death metal. This was a project mostly spearheaded by Dan Swano, who's kind of a legend of the underground, and he had his band Edge of Sanity, and he also has a lot of guest appearances. Like Michael Ockerfeld appears in this album, I think 3 times, but it's really cool. I think in comparison to a lot of more modern, prog/prog metal epics, this song has less going on, maybe less weird out of nowhere surprises and stuff, and less odd instrumentation and less quirky stuff. But it's just a really good song with amazing songwriting. I mean, it's literally just standard rock band instrumentation. There's not even a keyboard. But this is just really, really good songwriting, and it feels like I was talking about with the Crossroads, even though it's not a metal song, but it's kind of one of those epic sort of songs that is very linear, it keeps going and changing. This song/album, because it's only a 1-song album, sort of to me feels like one very, not the other one isn't cohesive, but it's very much one song. It's almost it could be a 4-minute song, but it's a 40-minute song, because it keeps coming back to parts over and over, not over and over, but it keeps coming back to different parts in the album, and signifying different things going on in the story. It has excellent guitar work, excellent vocals, and excellent drums and everything. So it's just a really good song, really good songwriting. My best listen to this song was so me and Dylan, who's our really best friend, basically. In 2014, we decided we were gonna hike a 400-mile trail, and we had basically never camped, so that was kind of a dumb decision. And I was in a tent with Dylan after the first night, which ended up being a botched attempt the next day. But I was there the first night, and he was sick. He had a cold, so he was sniffling all night, and I also was not doing great with allergies and stuff because it was May in the South, and I just listened to the song. And it was a really good listen for some reason. Yeah.
Nice. All right, my number 22 and the last segment of this episode for the songs This one might surprise you. I know I like this song a lot, but I don't know how much you know I like it.
Yeah.
And it's a Pain of Salvation song. And the song is In the Passing Light of Day by this band, which is off their most recent album. It's kind of funny because like this is like maybe my fourth or fifth favorite album by the band. And it's a band I really like a lot, so that's not like disrespecting or anything. But this song is just like really emotional for me. It's like really depressing. I think like even like if you don't know lyrically what it's about, just like the way it is musically, you would like know it is like a song about something really sad. Which is actually it's happened to me. I've played the song to people who have no idea anything about the song before, like maybe 4 different people, and every time they're like, can we put something not as depressing on? Or they'll say like, this is really depressing, even not knowing what it's about. And musically, I think it like is very depressing as well as lyrically. Daniel Gildenhow is the frontman of Pain of Salvation, lead singer, lead guitarist. And in 2000, this album is like a concept album about his like, he had a near-death experience. He had a flesh-eating bacteria that like almost killed him, and he was hospitalized for it for like a really long time. And this song is the final song on the album. It's a 15-minute song, and it's like, the song is like specifically about him saying like goodbye to like his, I think it's either his wife or his girlfriend, but just like the person he like loves the most in this entire world. And because he thought he was gonna die, and it's literally about him like kind of saying goodbye or whatever, and telling her like it's gonna be okay without me or whatever, and him just like accepting that he's gonna die. But musically, it opens with this like really cool keyboardy like type thing. I think it's a keyboard. I think they bring in some orchestral instruments as well for like the strings do that as well. But it's this really really soft like keyboard and orchestral thing they have going on to open it. Before this like really like sad, like really simple but really sad like guitar line comes in, and for like the first like 5 minutes of the song, it's just Daniel singing with these really vulnerable lyrics and him just playing this like pretty simple guitar melody. And the guitar melody is like really simple, but it really does its job like super well. And one of the things I love about the song is how it builds so well. And it like it's very very like subtly gets like louder like over time throughout those 5 minutes, before like really like breaking into this really like heavy riff comes in, and these really like bombastic drums come in, and there's like the next 5 minutes of this really like loud section, which is a really cool contrast. And again, the lyrics are like phenomenal in their life or whatever, and all the regrets he has, the things they should have done, and all the things they worried about that they shouldn't have worried about and should have just like spent time doing like something else instead. Before like coming back to these like him alone with this guitar again, basically. And basically just like telling her the final like 3 minutes of him just like saying like goodbye basically, and it's like really really depressing, and it's like basically him saying how he's like accepted like death or whatever, and like he knows like he's gonna die, and that's gonna be it or whatever. But it's really sad. It's really really emotional for me. It's a really tough song to listen to. I think if you're already like in a state of sadness, like the waterworks are gonna come out. I feel like it's just a really sad song. And again, really touching lyrics. And I'm glad he didn't die, obviously. Yeah, that's my 22.
Damn, dude, that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, thanks, man. And my number 21 is another Beardfish song.
Nice.
They are featured heavily on this list.
Nice.
And that song is, I don't know if this is going to surprise you. Probably not. I don't think it's going to surprise you. The song is Destined Solitaire by Beardfish. And this is the second track off their album, the album of the same name, Destined Solitaire. It's a 10-minute song. Again, like a lot of the things I've said about the other Beardfish songs also apply here. Like really, really good lyrics that like specifically I relate to like very strongly. It's like a relationship song, I would say. And the one lyric that I really like a lot is the chorus of the song has like really good lyrics. I thought it was the classic definition of a lone wolf. It is kind of irritating being this self-deprecated fool. I really love those lyrics a lot, and the whole song does a lot of cool like guitar stuff. I feel like that's the highlight on this song for me. Is the guitar work is really interesting and super unique. And there's like some harsh vocals as well that I think are like really powerful. I feel like he's only done harsh vocals like on 2 songs ever, I think, maybe 3, and he's pretty good at it. I think, and I don't know, it's not something I probably want like all the time, but I think he's like good at it. And again, they're really powerful in this song as well. And the song like has this really long instrumental break in the middle with like a bunch of cool guitar work, a bunch of cool like instrumental work as well before like coming back to like the main chorus at the end of the song. It's a brilliant song. It's really emotional again, like most of the songs on these lists are. Yeah, so that's my 21.
All right, now we're gonna talk a little bit about our surprises.
All right, the ones from your list. I think this streak of 10 is probably the most surprising, I'd say.
Which one?
So far, just the streak of 10 we've done.
Oh yeah.
I didn't really know where it was going. This one was like the most jarring, not in like a bad way. The giant squid one, again, haven't heard them, so that was something I haven't heard is always a little surprising. So that one was definitely surprising. The Face of Melinda being on the list at all was surprising. I didn't know that was like one of your favorite Opeth songs. Serenity Painted Death was not surprising. I know we've talked in like great length about how much we both like that song a lot, so I definitely thought that was gonna be on the list somewhere. Silent Fight Parliament being 22 was surprising, I would say. A Dream of Stone being the song over Massive Illusion was surprising, and also it being this high was surprising, I would say. And the Deer Hunter, I mean, again, I like Opeth, I never know what your favorite song is. That I didn't know that was going to be on the list at all, or the highest Deer Hunter song, so that's like interesting. So those are like the ones that like surprised me the most, I think.
Okay, cool. I think that for yours was actually less surprising to me a little bit. I think The Passing Light of Day, that one was surprising just because I didn't know that that was actually really surprising. So I didn't know that you liked that album, or I didn't know you liked anything about that album really that much. Especially I didn't think that one of the songs would be that high up. How long is that song also?
It's 15 minutes
15 minutes. Okay.
15 minute songs.
15-minute songs, yeah. Oh man, I have a playlist that's like 15-minute songs.
Yeah.
We should add that.
Throw it on.
Yeah, throw it on. No, but that's really cool. I'd say Cygnus X1 being like that low, honestly, I thought that one would be higher. And knowing that, like, because I was like, I thought like maybe when you first said Cygnus X1 that it would be lower because like 2112 or whatever it would be like higher. But I was so surprised that was like the highest Rush like epic or whatever. And that it was the first Rush song we've heard about so far from your list. So that was kind of surprising. Memory Palace, not surprising at all. Thought maybe that would be like slightly higher if it would be on there, but that's not really that surprising. And I was surprised because you said that was the only song from that album on there.
It is the only
That is surprising.
Yeah.
That is a little surprising. Trying to think of what else. I was surprised. I was a little bit surprised that Love Story was on there.
Really? I didn't.
I didn't know that you liked that one that much. I thought if it would be on there, it would be like pretty low. And then when it wasn't pretty low, I was like, I guess that one's not on there. So I like that one a lot. Celestial Elixir, not surprising at all. Although for some reason, it was, like when you first said it, I was like, oh.
Yeah, you were like, this seems surprising.
Yeah, but then I was thought, oh wait, Celestial Elixir. For some reason, I wasn't thinking of that song.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, which other song on there was going to be like on the top? Yeah, but anyways, that song is great. So overall, not as surprised as you were, I guess, but still some cool catches on there.
All right, so we've reached the very end of this episode, and we're gonna do our song recommendations of the week. I've got quite a lengthy song for you guys this week. I've got this band is called Fence. Nice. They're a Finnish, not even really a band, just two dudes actually. The main guy, he's like the main dude that writes all the lyrics. He's the lead singer, does all the guitar work, all the bass work, all the keyboard work, grand piano, and harmonica, and he has a drummer. And the drum guy also does like 12-string guitar stuff, which is really, really neat. And they have like a couple of guest musicians on this album. But the album is actually the song as well. The song is These Stones Cry from the Earth. And it's one 57-minute long song. It's not one of those albums that we were talking about earlier, like where it's like, oh, they say it's one song.
Yeah. It's literally on the track list as well.
The track list is like These Stones Cry from the Earth, 5709.
Yeah.
And I listened to this recently, and it's a really good album. It's like something I don't listen to often because it's not on Spotify.
Yeah.
So you have to listen to it on YouTube or like
I
don't even know if it's on Bandcamp. But it's a really good album, and actually it flows like really well considering its like runtime. And there's a bunch of variants. It's a progressive metal album, but there's a lot of cool like ambient stuff and atmospheric stuff as well. There's a lot of cool like added instruments, like the grand piano is a really nice touch, and there's like a bunch of saxophone work and Hammond organ stuff as well. But it flows really well, and it really does a good job of like switching between like heavy sections and like more like quieter sections. And the lyrical content is quite good as well. It just like is a really good song, an album that like again flows really well. It has really good instrumentation, really good mix I think overall. Even though it's only on YouTube, which isn't like the best quality, but the mix sounds good if it was on a higher quality service. But yeah, I definitely recommend checking out that song.
Nice. All right. My song rack of the week is also a long one, although not as long as that. It's like half as long as that, which is still really long. It's like a 26-minute song. And the song is called 6:17 p.m. The Aunt Turns Into an Ant. And it is by the band Regal Worm. And it's off their first album, Use and Ornament. And so Regal Worm, they're a band, mostly just like one guy with like a ton of guest musicians, but he also plays like a ton of instruments. And it's interesting because unlike a lot of prog stuff, it's very like keyboardy driven. Like honestly, if you didn't know that he was like playing all these instruments and stuff, you could say like, oh, it's all just like samples and like electronic stuff. But there's a lot of electronic stuff, but he's like playing it on all different. He has like all like a huge like setup with all different types of like keyboards and synthesizers. And then he has like people playing saxophone and all these different things and real drums and stuff. Anyways, so this is a 26-minute song that is about what the title says. It's literally about an aunt that turns into an ant. It's like really quirky and weird, which describes this band's all their music. Like it's really always really quirky. They had an album last year that was on my top 15 favorite albums of the year. But this is their first album. I don't like this one as much as their most recent album, which is, I guess, a good sign. But this Epic is a really good song. Lots of electronic influence, lots of really weird like vocal things. Honestly, there's some vocal parts that remind me of like Cassandra Gemini, where he's like, "There was a frail syrup," but like they use that voice to be like the ants talking. So it's really weird. The ants are like talking to the aunt and like telling her to like, that's okay to be an ant. And they have to like watch out for predators and stuff. It's literally just like something like happens instantly. Like literally the first lyrics are like about how like her she's like now on the patio floor and like she's like, what's that mountain in my midst? Is it my upturned cup? And it's like, because it is. Anyways, yeah, crazy stuff, but really good.
All right, that concludes the 5th episode of ProgPod. The next 2 we're gonna finish up the songs or whatever, and then we'll have some new material coming for you guys soon. So stay tuned for more